There's less repetition. The latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. We're hearing the same podcast ad less often, says Podsights in its new Q3 22 benchmark report. Average frequency dipped from 6.3 to 4.7, which the company says also improved ad effectiveness. The company also reports that programmatic ads work better than embedded ones. Congratulations to The Moth, which has hit 100 million downloads this year. It's The Moth's 25th anniversary year, recently releasing a best-selling book. Later this year, you'll be able to get a card game, and the show goes on a pop-up porch tour too. Gregory Warner is curator of the Earbuds podcast collective this week, focusing on podcasts about work and work culture around the world. You should subscribe. It's at earbuds.audio. Frank Riccioppi has posted a list of people he considers to be thought leaders in podcasting. It's worth a read. Paid podcast directory Listen Notes is to start its own free podcast host, dubbed Listen Host. The service will require you to use your own custom domain, and it won't, initially, provide analytics. Listen Notes has also posted data of how people use its platform. Weirdly, they haven't mentioned those that purchase email addresses to spam podcasters with, which the Wisdom app has done twice in the past week. We've asked Wisdom for a statement. They've not got our email. And ratings for Chris Cuomo's podcast sinking fast, claims the New York Post. Their source, the Apple podcast charts. But, as we know, Apple's so-called podcast charts are nothing of the sort, engineered to show trending shows and wholly unrelated to downloads or long-term popularity. We link to more in our show notes and our newsletter today. And if you've been missing some features in Pod News recently, we're back to full strength tomorrow. It's a Monday, so time for some tech stuff. The Podcast Index has more than 4.1 million podcasts in it. But aren't many of those abandoned shows not listed in other directories? Actually, no. There's an automated removal process from their database. 90 days after birth, the podcast has to have at least 2 episodes, one of which is longer than 3 minutes. And that criteria only applies to the free hosting platforms. Seems to work for us. As iOS 16 gets ever closer, and with it the AV URL asset HTTP user agent key, John Spurlock has posted code showing podcast app developers how to set their user agent correctly. So goodbye, Apple Core Media. There was an issue where it didn't work if the server didn't support HTTP range requests, but that bug seems to have been fixed in the latest beta 5, which was released last week. Designed to be a documentation website and demonstration tool for the new podcast namespace, podcastnamespace.org is new from us. And we'd love your help maintaining that. Satoshi's.stream is working on a web version, removing the requirement to use Telegram to maintain your podcast on the system. And thank you to the very many boostergrams this week. So many we can't really read them. But we're very, very appreciative of those, and we will read at least some next week. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.